Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dr. J, and if you're new here, thanks so much for clicking on this video. Before we jump in, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications because we upload health and fitness content every single week that could literally transform the way your body looks and feels. Now, I want to start this video with something that I think is going to blow your mind. How many of you here have noticed that your hair isn't quite as thick as it used to be? Maybe you're finding more hair in your shower drain than you'd like to admit. Maybe you're standing in front of the mirror and you're noticing that your hairline isn't what it was, or that your part is getting wider, or that your ponytail just doesn't have the same volume that it used to have. If that's you, raise your hand, because I'm telling you right now, you are absolutely not alone. Hair loss is affecting millions of people worldwide, and what's crazy is that a huge portion of people dealing with hair loss don't realize that the solution might be sitting right there in their kitchen. Here's what most people don't know. Your body is an incredibly intelligent system, and when you're experiencing hair loss, it's not random. It's a signal. It's your body telling you that something is off, that something is imbalanced, and usually that imbalance starts with nutrition. Your hair follicles, really think about this for a second. Your hair follicles are some of the most metabolically active cells in your entire body. They require specific vitamins, specific minerals, specific proteins, and specific healthy fats to function optimally. And when you're not giving your body those nutrients, guess what happens? Your hair is literally one of the first things to suffer because your body prioritizes the organs that keep you alive over the cosmetic aspects of your appearance. So today, I want to share with you 7 specific foods that have the power to completely reactivate your hair growth. And I'm not talking about foods that just have a little bit of protein or a little bit of some vitamin. I'm talking about nutritional powerhouses that are scientifically proven to stimulate hair follicles, increase blood flow to the scalp, balance your hormones, reduce inflammation, and literally create the optimal environment for thick, healthy, vibrant hair growth. These are foods that I personally recommend to my patients, foods that I use myself, and foods that have literally transformed people's hair quality in as little as 2 to 3 months. Before I dive into these 7 foods, I want you to understand something really important about how hair growth works, because this context is going to make everything make so much more sense. Your hair grows in cycles. There's a growth phase called the anagen phase, there's a transition phase called the catagen phase, and there's a resting phase called the telogen phase. When your hair follicles move prematurely into that resting phase because of poor nutrition, inflammation, hormonal imbalance, or stress, that's when you start losing hair. What these 7 foods do is they help keep your follicles in that anagen phase, that growth phase, for as long as possible. They reduce inflammation, they provide the raw materials that your hair needs to build strong, thick strands, and they optimize the hormonal environment so that your follicles can thrive. So, let's jump into the first food, and this one is going to surprise a lot of you because it's something that so many of us have been told to avoid. The first food is eggs. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've heard conflicting information about eggs your whole life, but here's the reality. Eggs are one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, and for hair growth specifically, they are absolutely phenomenal. Eggs contain high-quality protein, which is essential because hair itself is made primarily of a protein called keratin. Your body takes the amino acids from the protein you eat and uses those amino acids to build strong hair strands. But here's where it gets really interesting. Eggs also contain something called choline, and choline is a nutrient that many people are deficient in, and it plays a crucial role in reducing inflammation in your scalp. But wait, there's more. Eggs also contain biotin, which is sometimes called vitamin B7, and biotin is one of the most studied nutrients for hair health. Multiple clinical studies have shown that biotin supplementation increases hair strength and improves the texture of hair in people who have thinning hair. On top of that, eggs contain selenium, zinc, and iron, which are 3 minerals that your hair follicles absolutely depend on to function properly. When you're deficient in any of these minerals, your hair growth actually slows down significantly. And here's the cool part. Eggs contain lutein and zeaxanthin, which are antioxidants that protect your hair follicles from oxidative stress and damage caused by free radicals. Now, the key to getting all of these benefits from eggs is that you need to eat the whole egg. The yolk is where most of the nutrients are. I know some people have this mentality that they should only eat egg whites, but that's actually stripping away the most nutrient-dense part of the egg. The yolk contains choline, it contains biotin, it contains all of those minerals I mentioned. So if you're dealing with hair loss, I want you eating 2 to 3 whole eggs per day. You can have them scrambled, you can have them boiled, you can have them in an omelet, doesn't really matter. Just make sure you're getting those yolks in there. And if you're vegan or you can't eat eggs for some reason, don't worry, we're going to cover other options as we go through these 7 foods. The second food that's going to reactivate your hair growth is fatty fish, specifically salmon, mackerel, or sardines. Now, fatty fish are incredible because they're packed with omega-3 fatty acids, and omega-3 fatty acids are anti-inflammatory compounds that literally reduce inflammation throughout your entire body, including your scalp. Here's something that a lot of people don't realize. A lot of hair loss, particularly in people who are experiencing something called androgenetic alopecia or pattern baldness, involves an inflammatory response in the scalp. The omega-3 fatty acids in fatty fish help calm that inflammatory response. They also improve blood circulation to the scalp, and better blood circulation means better nutrient delivery to your hair follicles. But the benefits don't stop there. Fatty fish are also incredible sources of vitamin D. Now, vitamin D is something that I test for in almost every single one of my patients, and you know why? Because vitamin D deficiency is absolutely rampant, and vitamin D plays a role in the hair growth cycle. Multiple studies have shown that people with pattern baldness often have low vitamin D levels. When your vitamin D is low, your hair follicles don't function as well. They're more likely to move into that resting phase prematurely. So by eating fatty fish and getting that vitamin D, you're literally optimizing the environment for hair growth. On top of that, fatty fish are loaded with selenium and protein. The selenium acts as an antioxidant, protecting your hair follicles, and the protein provides those amino acids your hair needs to build strong strands. I recommend that my patients who are dealing with hair loss eat fatty fish 3 times per week. That could be a salmon fillet for dinner. That could be a sardine salad for lunch. That could be mackerel on whole grain bread. Whatever works for your lifestyle, but get that fatty fish in there 3 times per week. Now, the third food is something that I think is absolutely incredible, and it's something that a lot of people overlook. It's oysters. Oysters are one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the entire planet, and when it comes to hair growth, they are a game changer. Oysters are extraordinarily rich in zinc, and zinc is one of the most important minerals for hair health. Here's why. Zinc is essential for protein synthesis, which means your body needs zinc to actually build the protein that makes up your hair. When you're deficient in zinc, your hair growth slows down, your hair becomes brittle, and you experience increased hair shedding. But here's what's really fascinating. Zinc also plays a role in regulating something called DHT, which is dihydrotestosterone. Now, DHT is a hormone that's derived from testosterone, and in people who are genetically predisposed, DHT can cause hair follicles to shrink, which leads to pattern baldness. By ensuring that your zinc levels are adequate, you're actually helping to regulate DHT production and metabolism. So you're not blocking DHT, which could cause other hormonal issues, but you're optimizing your body's ability to process and metabolize it appropriately. Oysters also contain copper, which works synergistically with zinc to support collagen production in your scalp. They contain iron, they contain selenium, they contain B12, which is essential if you're vegetarian or vegan because B12 is primarily found in animal products. They also contain a compound called selenium, which acts as an antioxidant. Now, if you can't do oysters because you don't like them or you can't access them, that's okay. Clams, mussels, and crab are also fantastic sources of zinc and will give you similar benefits. But if you can do oysters, I would aim for eating them once or twice per week. The fourth food is one that I think is going to surprise a lot of you because it's not typically associated with hair health, but it is absolutely transformative. It's pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds are these little nutritional powerhouses that are packed with zinc, magnesium, manganese, copper, and iron. All of these minerals play a role in hair health. But here's what's really cool about pumpkin seeds. They contain something called phytosterols, which are plant compounds that can actually help block the conversion of testosterone to DHT. So if you're dealing with pattern baldness and you want to address the hormonal component naturally, pumpkin seeds are a fantastic option. Pumpkin seeds are also high in protein and omega-6 fatty acids, which support scalp health and hair strength. And get this, studies have actually shown that men who take pumpkin seed oil supplementation experience a significant increase in hair growth. One study showed an increase in hair count of about 40% over the course of 6 months. Now, that was using supplementation. But if you're eating a handful of pumpkin seeds every single day, you're getting some of those benefits. You can eat them raw, you can roast them, you can sprinkle them on salads, you can add them to smoothies, you can make pumpkin seed butter, however you want to incorporate them. I would recommend getting about a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of pumpkin seeds per day. The fifth food is spinach and dark leafy greens in general, but I'm going to focus on spinach. Spinach is loaded with iron, and iron is essential for hair growth. Here's the thing, iron is what your red blood cells use to carry oxygen throughout your body. When you're deficient in iron, your body deprioritizes getting oxygen and nutrients to your hair follicles because your body is trying to keep your vital organs supplied with oxygen. This is why iron deficiency anemia often causes hair loss. But beyond iron, spinach contains folate, which is essential for cell division and protein synthesis. Your hair follicles are dividing cells, so they need adequate folate to function optimally. Spinach also contains lutein, which is an antioxidant that protects your hair follicles from oxidative damage. It contains vitamin A, which is essential for sebum production in your scalp. Now, sebum gets a bad reputation, but sebum is actually incredibly important because it protects your scalp and your hair from damage. Without adequate sebum, your scalp becomes dry and irritated, and that inflammation can actually interfere with hair growth. Spinach also contains vitamin C, which is essential for collagen synthesis, and your scalp needs collagen to maintain its structural integrity. I would recommend eating a large handful of spinach every single day. You can saute it, you can throw it in smoothies, you can eat it raw in salads. Just make sure you're getting it in your diet consistently. The sixth food is sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are fantastic for hair growth for a number of reasons. First, they're loaded with beta-carotene, which your body converts to vitamin A. Now, vitamin A is essential for the growth of all cells in your body, including hair cells. It also regulates the sebum production in your scalp, which I just mentioned is important for scalp health. But here's what's really cool. Sweet potatoes contain something called manganese, which is a mineral that's essential for collagen formation and for the metabolism of amino acids. They also contain vitamin C, which I mentioned earlier is essential for collagen synthesis. Sweet potatoes also contain B vitamins, particularly B6, which is important for creating hemoglobin, which carries oxygen in your blood. And remember, getting oxygen to your hair follicles is crucial for hair growth. Beyond that, sweet potatoes contain antioxidants that protect your cells from oxidative damage. They're also a fantastic source of resistant starch, which feeds your gut microbiome. Now, you might be wondering what your gut has to do with your hair, and that's a great question. Your gut microbiome produces short-chain fatty acids that reduce inflammation throughout your body, including in your scalp. So by eating foods like sweet potatoes that feed your beneficial gut bacteria, you're actually supporting hair growth indirectly. I recommend eating sweet potatoes about 3 times per week. And then the seventh and final food is nuts, particularly walnuts and almonds. Walnuts are incredibly rich in omega-3 fatty acids and are one of the best plant-based sources of omega-3s. They also contain zinc, they contain biotin, they contain vitamin E, and they contain selenium. All of these nutrients support hair health. Almonds are fantastic sources of biotin, vitamin E, and magnesium. Biotin and vitamin E both support hair strength and shine, and magnesium supports the health of your hair follicles by reducing inflammation and supporting proper mineral balance in your cells. Nuts are also high in protein. They're high in healthy fats, and they contain compounds called polyphenols, which are antioxidants that protect your cells from oxidative damage. I recommend eating about a handful of nuts per day. That's roughly 23 almonds or 14 walnut halves. You can eat them as a snack, you can add them to salads, you can make nut butter and spread it on toast or add it to smoothies. Just make sure you're being consistent with it. Now, here's something really important that I want to emphasize. These 7 foods work best when they're part of a comprehensive approach to hair health. And what I mean by that is that you can't just eat these foods and expect your hair to grow back if you're also living a lifestyle that's promoting hair loss. So let me give you some additional strategies that are going to amplify the effects of these foods. First, you need to reduce your stress levels. I know, easier said than done, but stress elevates cortisol, which is your body's primary stress hormone. When cortisol is elevated chronically, it pushes hair follicles into that resting phase prematurely, and it increases inflammation throughout your body, including in your scalp. So you need to be doing something every single day to manage your stress. That could be meditation, that could be yoga, that could be deep breathing exercises, that could be going for a walk, that could be journaling. Whatever works for you, but you need to be managing your stress consistently. Second, you need to be getting adequate sleep. During sleep, your body enters an anabolic state, which means it's focused on building and repairing tissues. When you're not getting enough sleep, your body is in a catabolic state, which means it's breaking down tissues. Your hair follicles need that anabolic state to grow hair. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night, and try to get that sleep on a consistent schedule. Third, you need to be moving your body. Exercise increases blood flow to your entire body, including your scalp. It reduces inflammation, it helps manage stress, it improves sleep quality, and it optimizes your hormonal balance. Aim for about 150 minutes of moderate cardiovascular exercise per week, and also include some resistance training to maintain muscle mass and bone density. This is going to support hair health. Fourth, and this is really important, you need to minimize your intake of inflammatory foods. Ultra-processed foods, foods high in refined sugar, foods high in vegetable oils that are high in omega-6 fatty acids, foods with artificial additives. These foods promote inflammation in your body, and that inflammation extends to your scalp. When your scalp is inflamed, your hair growth is compromised. So focus on whole foods, focus on the foods I've mentioned in this video, and minimize the junk. Fifth, you need to stay hydrated. Water is essential for every metabolic process in your body, including hair growth. Aim for about half your body weight in ounces of water per day. So if you weigh 180 pounds, you should be drinking about 90 ounces of water per day. This is going to support cellular function and nutrient delivery to your hair follicles. Sixth, you might want to consider adding some supplements to amplify your results. Now, supplements are not a replacement for eating whole foods, but they can be useful for filling in nutrient gaps, particularly if you've been dealing with hair loss for a while and you have significant nutrient deficiencies. A good multivitamin can cover some of your bases, but more specifically, biotin supplementation has strong research supporting its use for hair growth. I would recommend taking about 2.5 milligrams of biotin per day. Vitamin D supplementation is also important, particularly if you live somewhere with limited sunlight or if your vitamin D levels are low. Aim for about 2,000 to 4,000 IU per day, but you can get your vitamin D levels tested to determine the exact amount you need. A high-quality omega-3 supplement can be useful if you're not eating fatty fish regularly. And if you're vegetarian or vegan and you can't eat oysters or shellfish, you might want to consider a zinc supplement, particularly if you're experiencing hair loss. Zinc supplementation should be done carefully, though, because too much zinc can actually interfere with the absorption of other minerals, so I would recommend working with a healthcare provider to determine if you need zinc supplementation and what dose is appropriate for you. Seventh, if you're experiencing significant hair loss, you might want to get some blood work done to identify any underlying nutrient deficiencies or hormonal imbalances. Common causes of hair loss that can be identified through blood work include iron deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, zinc deficiency, thyroid problems, and hormonal imbalances. Once you've identified the underlying cause, you can address it directly, and that's going to give you much faster results than just trying to address hair loss with diet alone. Now, let me give you some practical tips for how to actually incorporate these 7 foods into your diet consistently. Because I know that knowing about foods is one thing, but actually eating them consistently is another thing entirely. First, I would suggest meal prepping. Spend some time on Sunday preparing foods for the week. Cook some salmon or other fatty fish, boil some eggs, prepare a big salad with spinach, roast some sweet potatoes, roast some pumpkin seeds. Having these foods prepared ahead of time makes it so much easier to incorporate them into your meals throughout the week. Second, I would suggest keeping these foods visible and accessible in your kitchen. Put the eggs on a shelf at eye level in your refrigerator. Keep pumpkin seeds in a bowl on your counter. Keep your nuts in a visible location. The more visible these foods are, the more likely you are to eat them. Third, I would suggest starting with 1 or 2 of these foods and making them a habit before you add more. So maybe you start with eggs and salmon and you make those a part of your routine for 2 weeks, and then you add spinach, and then you add sweet potatoes. This way, you're not trying to change everything at once, which is overwhelming and unsustainable. Fourth, I would suggest finding recipes that you actually enjoy. Don't just force yourself to eat foods you don't like in the name of hair growth. There are so many delicious ways to prepare these foods. You can make a salmon sushi bowl. You can make a veggie-loaded omelet. You can make a spinach and sweet potato curry. You can make nut butter smoothies. Find recipes that you enjoy and that make eating these foods feel like a pleasure rather than a chore. Fifth, I would suggest tracking your progress. Take some photos of your hair and your scalp right now, measure your hair loss if you're experiencing it, and then revisit those photos and measurements every month. Most people start noticing visible improvements in their hair within 2 to 3 months of implementing these dietary changes consistently. You might notice that your hair feels stronger, that you're shedding less hair, that you have more energy at your hair roots, that your hair is shinier, or that you're getting new hair growth. These are all signs that your body is responding to the dietary changes you're making. Here's something really important that I want to address: the timeline for hair growth. Your hair grows at a rate of about 6 inches per year, or about half an inch per month. So if you're expecting to go from bald spots to a full head of hair in a month, that's not going to happen. But what can happen in a month is that your hair can become stronger, thicker, and you can experience less shedding. Over the course of 2 to 3 months, you can start seeing visible new hair growth. Over the course of 6 months to a year, you can see significant improvements in hair volume and thickness. So you need to be patient with this process, but you also need to be consistent. Now, I want to address a couple of questions that I know you're asking yourselves. First, if I start eating these foods and my hair starts growing back, what happens if I stop eating these foods? Well, your hair will likely start to thin again. So these aren't a short-term fix. This is a lifestyle change. This is about optimizing your nutrition long-term to support your best hair health. Which brings me to my second point. These foods are not just good for your hair. They're good for your overall health. Eggs are good for your brain, your eyes, and your muscle health. Fatty fish are good for your heart and your brain. Spinach is good for your eyes and your bones. These foods are nutritional powerhouses that support your entire body, so incorporating them into your diet is a win-win. Let me also address some common mistakes that I see people making when they're trying to reverse hair loss. The first mistake is thinking that it's all about nutrition. While nutrition is incredibly important, it's not the only factor. You also need to manage your stress, get adequate sleep, exercise, and avoid inflammatory foods and lifestyle habits. Hair loss is usually multifactorial, which means there are multiple contributing factors, so you need to address multiple factors to see significant results. The second mistake is expecting immediate results. As I mentioned, hair growth takes time. If you're eating these foods for 2 weeks and not seeing results, that doesn't mean it's not working. It means your body needs more time. Give it at least 2 to 3 months before you evaluate whether something is working. The third mistake is going overboard with supplementation. More is not always better. Taking excessive amounts of certain nutrients, particularly fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A and vitamin D, can actually be harmful. So if you're going to supplement, do so in reasonable amounts, and ideally under the guidance of a healthcare provider. The fourth mistake is not being consistent. The people I see who get the best results are the ones who implement these changes consistently over months. They're not the people who do it perfectly for a week and then stop. They're the people who make these dietary changes part of their lifestyle. So consistency is key. The fifth mistake is ignoring other factors that might be contributing to hair loss. If you have a hormonal condition, if you have a thyroid problem, if you have an autoimmune condition, if you're taking medications that cause hair loss as a side effect, then diet alone might not be enough. You might need to work with a healthcare provider to address these underlying issues. So don't assume that just because you're eating better, that your hair loss problem is going to resolve completely if there's an underlying medical condition at play. Now, let me give you some additional information about specific conditions that might be causing your hair loss, just so you have a better understanding of what might be going on in your body. If you're experiencing pattern baldness, which is the most common type of hair loss, this is usually related to genetics and hormonal sensitivity to DHT. In this case, the nutritional strategies I've mentioned, particularly the pumpkin seeds and ensuring adequate zinc, are going to be particularly helpful because they address the hormonal component of pattern baldness. If you're experiencing hair loss due to nutrient deficiency, then the foods I've mentioned are going to be directly addressing the cause of your hair loss. You should start seeing improvements relatively quickly, within a few weeks, because you're giving your hair follicles the nutrients they've been lacking. If you're experiencing hair loss due to stress, which is called telogen effluvium, then you need to focus on stress management and some of the foods I mentioned that support stress management and hormonal balance, particularly the omega-3 rich foods and the foods high in B vitamins. If you're experiencing hair loss due to inflammation, then you want to focus on the anti-inflammatory foods I mentioned, particularly fatty fish, spinach, and sweet potatoes, and you want to eliminate inflammatory foods from your diet. If you're experiencing hair loss due to hormonal imbalances, then you want to focus on foods that support hormonal balance, particularly the foods high in B vitamins and the foods that support blood sugar regulation, like sweet potatoes. You also want to focus on managing stress and getting adequate sleep, because these directly impact your hormonal balance. Now, I want to dive a little bit deeper into the mechanism of action of these foods, because I think understanding how they work is going to help you stay motivated to eat them. When you eat a food that's rich in a nutrient like zinc, that zinc gets absorbed in your small intestine, enters your bloodstream, and then gets transported to your hair follicles. At the hair follicle level, zinc is incorporated into proteins and enzymes that are essential for hair growth. Specifically, zinc is a cofactor for an enzyme called DNA polymerase, which is essential for cell division. Your hair follicles are rapidly dividing cells, so they need this enzyme to function optimally, When you eat a food that's rich in omega-3 fatty acids, those omega-3 fatty acids get incorporated into the cell membranes of your cells, including your hair follicle cells. This improves the fluidity and the function of those cell membranes, which improves nutrient uptake and hormone responsiveness in your hair follicles. Additionally, omega-3 fatty acids are converted into compounds called eicosanoids, which are signaling molecules that regulate inflammation. By providing your body with omega-3 fatty acids, you're essentially telling your body to reduce inflammation and create a more favorable environment for hair growth. When you eat a food that's rich in vitamin A, like sweet potatoes, your body can either use the vitamin A directly or convert beta-carotene into vitamin A. Vitamin A then binds to receptors in your hair follicle cells, which activates genes related to cell growth and differentiation. This is how vitamin A supports hair growth at a cellular level. When you eat a food that's rich in iron, like spinach, that iron gets absorbed in your small intestine and incorporated into hemoglobin in your red blood cells. This hemoglobin then carries oxygen throughout your body, including to your hair follicles. Your hair follicles are metabolically active and require oxygen to function optimally. Without adequate oxygen, hair growth is compromised. When you eat a food that's rich in protein and biotin, like eggs, the protein gets broken down into amino acids in your digestive system. These amino acids are then transported to your hair follicles, where they're used to build keratin, which is the primary structural protein in your hair. Biotin acts as a cofactor for enzymes involved in amino acid metabolism, so it's essential for your body's ability to process and utilize the protein you eat. I really think that understanding these mechanisms is powerful because it helps you understand that you're not just randomly eating foods and hoping your hair grows. You're eating foods that are directly supporting specific molecular processes that are essential for hair growth. You're putting your body in a position where hair growth can happen. Now, let's talk about a timeline for results. If you implement all of these dietary changes and all of the lifestyle changes I mentioned, here's what you can typically expect. Within 1 to 2 weeks, you might notice that you have more energy and that your body just feels better. You're eating nutrient-dense whole foods, and your body is responding to that. Within 2 to 4 weeks, you might notice that your hair feels stronger and that you're shedding less hair. You might also notice that your skin looks better and that your digestion has improved. These are all signs that your nutrition is improving. Within 4 to 8 weeks, you might start noticing new hair growth. You might see baby hairs around your hairline or at your part. Your existing hair might look shinier and healthier. Within 2 to 3 months, if you've been consistent, you should be noticing a visible improvement in hair thickness and volume. People around you might even start commenting on your hair looking better. Within 6 months, you could potentially see significant improvements if you've been consistent with your diet and lifestyle changes. But remember, this is not a magic bullet. There are people who implement all of these changes and still have significant hair loss because of underlying genetic factors or medical conditions. In those cases, you might want to work with a dermatologist who specializes in hair loss to explore other options, which might include prescription medications or other treatments. Now, let me give you a sample day of eating to show you how you can practically incorporate these 7 foods into your diet. You wake up in the morning and you have an omelet made with 2 whole eggs, filled with sautéed spinach and diced sweet potato. You serve it with a side of toast and maybe some sliced avocado. That's egg, spinach, and sweet potato right there in your breakfast. For your mid-morning snack, you have a handful of almonds and walnuts, maybe about 30 grams. That's nuts covered. For lunch, you have a salmon fillet, a large side salad with spinach as the base and pumpkin seeds sprinkled on top, with olive oil and lemon juice as the dressing. A side of roasted sweet potato. That's salmon, spinach, pumpkin seeds, and more sweet potato. For your afternoon snack, you have a handful of oysters if you can get them, or if not, you have some more nuts or you have a boiled egg. For dinner, you have baked mackerel or sardines with sautéed spinach and a side of roasted sweet potatoes. And throughout the day, you're drinking plenty of water, maybe adding some lemon to your water to make it more interesting. In that sample day, you're hitting all 7 foods multiple times, plus you're getting a variety of other nutrient-dense whole foods. You're setting your body up for success when it comes to hair growth. Now, I want to address one more thing before I wrap up, and that's the role of scalp health. You can eat all the right foods, but if your scalp is in poor condition, your hair is still not going to grow as well. So let me give you some tips for optimizing your scalp health to go along with the dietary changes. First, massage your scalp regularly. Scalp massage increases blood flow to your hair follicles, which delivers more oxygen and nutrients to those follicles. Spend about 5 minutes a day massaging your scalp with your fingertips. Use gentle circular motions. This is something you can do in the shower or you can do it before bed. Second, make sure you're using a gentle shampoo. A lot of commercial shampoos are loaded with sulfates and other harsh chemicals that can damage your scalp and your hair. Look for a sulfate-free shampoo and condition properly. Third, avoid using extremely hot water when you shower. Hot water can strip natural oils from your scalp and your hair, which can lead to dryness and irritation. Use warm or cool water instead. Fourth, make sure you're not overwashing your hair. Washing your hair every day can be too much and can disrupt the natural balance of oils in your scalp. Aim for washing your hair maybe 3 to 4 times per week, depending on your hair type. Fifth, consider using a scalp treatment. There are some really good scalp treatments out there that contain nourishing oils and plant extracts that can improve scalp health. You can apply these once or twice per week. Sixth, avoid tight hairstyles that put tension on your hair follicles. Tight ponytails, tight braids, and tight buns can actually cause a type of hair loss called traction alopecia. So wear your hair in a looser style. Alright guys, I think I've given you a comprehensive overview of how to use nutrition to reactivate your hair growth. Let me summarize the key points. The 7 foods are eggs, fatty fish, oysters, pumpkin seeds, spinach and dark leafy greens, sweet potatoes, and nuts. These foods contain the specific nutrients your hair needs to grow. Protein, biotin, zinc, iron, selenium, vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids, and antioxidants. Beyond nutrition, you need to manage your stress, get adequate sleep, exercise, minimize inflammatory foods, and stay hydrated. You might also want to consider supplementation and get blood work done to identify any underlying deficiencies. You need to be consistent with these changes over months to see results. You can't expect overnight changes, but you can expect gradual improvements over the course of 2 to 3 months. And finally, you need to take care of your scalp health by massaging your scalp, using gentle products, avoiding hot water, not overwashing, and avoiding tight hairstyles. If you implement all of these strategies, you're setting your body up for the best possible hair growth outcomes. Now, I know that some of you might have more severe hair loss or underlying medical conditions that require additional intervention, and that's completely okay. Work with a healthcare provider to figure out what's best for you. But for many of you, these dietary and lifestyle changes are going to make a significant difference. Your hair is going to become thicker, stronger, and healthier. You're going to feel better overall. And that's the power of nutrition and lifestyle medicine. Now, before you go, I want to ask you to do a couple of things. First, I want you to hit that like button. It helps me know that this video was helpful for you, and it helps the YouTube algorithm recommend this video to other people who are struggling with hair loss. Second, I want you to leave a comment below telling me which one of these 7 foods you're most excited to incorporate into your diet. Are you going to start with salmon? Are you going to start with eggs? Are you going to start with pumpkin seeds? Let me know in the comments below, because I love reading your comments and I respond to as many as I can. Third, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss any of the health and fitness content that we upload every week. And finally, if you found this video helpful, please share it with someone who you think could benefit from this information. If someone you know is struggling with hair loss, send them this video. Let's help them take control of their hair health through nutrition and lifestyle changes. I'm Dr. J, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.